Welcome into lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members of our Lewis and Clark College community, a total of twice a week, Tuesday and Thursdays now at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, and you can see all of our past shows available to watch on demand at lcpios on YouTube. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers based out of Portland, Oregon, and members of NCAA Division III, where our student athletes compete across 19 intercollegiate athletics teams and over 430 institutions at the NCAA Division III level. So a chance for our student athletes to compete on a national stage and part of a 9-institution Northwest Conference spanning parts of Northwest Oregon throughout the state of Washington, which, coming up, will show you a brand new logo for the Northwest Conference that was unveiled this week. We also have some news on some coaching staff changes for Lewis and Clark football, as by the time we talk to you next week, because this is our first show in about a week and a half, had some vacation, it was a lot of fun, traveled throughout Montana, Idaho, and now ready to get into fall 2021. When we talk to you again next week, it'll be August, which means we are less than 20 days away from fall sports reporting at Lewis and Clark College. We will talk to a winter sports student athlete, an alumnus from the class of 2018 coming up in a little bit. We'll talk to Lauren Wood from women's basketball. We invite you to get involved with the program. If you have any questions, something you want to ask Lauren, maybe you want to suggest a future guest for lcpioneers.com live, you can do so using our email address. That is sports@lclark.edu. And we, of course, encourage you to stay in touch with us on social media. We have several handles across platforms, including Twitter and Instagram. Please follow us there. Our handle on both LC Pioneers and, of course, facebook.com/LC Pioneers as well. Mentioned that there are changes for Lewis and Clark football. Coach Losi talking about new defensive coordinator. Eric Jackson has become an advisor for Lewis and Clark, so they'll turn the defense over to Randy Heath, who's been several years now the linebackers coach for Lewis and Clark. Had some very successful runs as a defensive coordinator for an OSAA 6A powerhouse in Portland. That's Jesuit High School. And then alumnus Forrest Sherman, who's a member of Lewis and Clark Hall of Fame teams, will also help coordinate pass game defense while also having a bigger role as a full-time member of the Lewis and Clark College football staff. Check that out right now at lcpioneers.com. And then I mentioned the new look for the Northwest Conference. The branding committee was comprised of several different members of Lewis and Clark and beyond throughout the Northwest Conference to make a new look that really represents the outside and the adventure that is Lewis and Clark and the Northwest Conference through being part of the Pacific Northwest. I mean, this is unique, a chance for student athletes to compete in the Northwest part of the country, because the NCAA Division III map, if you look at it, it's very heavy in the East, in the Northeast, and even through Minnesota, Michigan, some of those states, right? So it's a unique opportunity to compete at the D3 level in the Pacific Northwest, let alone being out west. The new logo showing off the waterfalls, the mountains, the trees, everything that makes the Northwest special and the adventure that lies within. Check that out at nwcsports.com. It's been kind of a cool adventure that the conference has gone on with that work. All right, let's bring in our guest for today. Again, a former Lewis and Clark student athlete, competed for Lewis and Clark women's basketball. Let's welcome in Lauren Wood to the show. Hi, Lauren. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ryan. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And getting you at an interesting time, because we ask everybody about why they came to Lewis and Clark. We're going to get to that. But being now 3 years removed from Lewis and Clark as a class of 2018, we're also going to ask you what you've been up to. And that has very high relevance right now, because you just got done with something significant yesterday. Kind of catch us up with what happened earlier this week.
I did. So I just finished taking the California 2-day bar exam, finished up yesterday. So it's a pretty good relief to be done with that, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, the bar exam, you hear about this, right? This is something that everyone who goes through law school tells you about, but it's another thing to live it. What are some of the things that you learned going through the process?
You know, I learned all the people were right and how they said how hard the bar exam was. Really just learning how to push through your good days and push through your bad days and, enjoy your good days while studying. And it's kind of, the cherry on top of your law school career.
And so when did you decide that the law school route, becoming a lawyer, was something that you wanted to do?
It was, I think, my senior year that I kind of decided, once you're done with school and you're finishing up college, you're like, well, what do I do now? And I've always just really enjoyed the law, really enjoyed family law specifically, which is where I have my job starting in September. But yeah, just something I've always been interested in and thought it was a good next step after Lewis and Clark.
And we talk about this on this show, and obviously as student athletes are being pitched to come to Lewis and Clark once you're here going through the academic process, is one thing I've always admired about Lewis and Clark is the opportunity to kind of explore that experiential liberal arts education. And it sounds like you did decide specifically what you wanted to do. When you look back at choosing psychology as a major and having a chance to get your undergraduate at Lewis and Clark, how did some of those elements of that liberal arts opportunity kind of stand out as you decided what you wanted to do?
I think getting a liberal arts education is just a really good thing. You're really well rounded. You're taking classes in art, theater, sciences, and I just really enjoyed psychology again. So that's kind of how I got into it. But I just think a lot of just a combination of what you get to do at Lewis and Clark, and especially being a student athlete with that, can help you in your career.
I'm going to ask you, like I mentioned, about the reasons for choosing Lewis and Clark in a moment, but you mentioned psychology and you go through that major. As you look back specifically in that degree route, was there a class, was there a professor that really stood out? What's a story that you can share?
The one that always sticks out to me, and people laugh about this, is social psychology with Dr. Bill. It's just a really fun class. You get to learn why people are the way they are. Really, it's a class that gets you outside of your comfort zone. I know that we had a project that we had to do where it was just something, honestly, to like get in people's bubbles and make people uncomfortable to see how you deal with that. So, I remember like I would walk really, really close to people and just kind of you see how they react to it. So that's always one that sticks out in my mind.
Lauren Wood is our guest on lcpioneers.com live, class of 2018 alumnus from women's basketball. The other thing that I want your insight on when it comes to law school and going through what is already a pretty rigorous process is doing it over the course of a pandemic. How did the pandemic affect your ability to get prepared for the bar exam?
Really different, this time around our bar exam was online when it's normally, held in a convention center with thousands of people. So that was different. I did half of my law school online and it wasn't fun, but it's just another thing that we had to push through. And, I know all the college students as well. We just learned as we went and definitely will be in the history books for it.
You mentioned, or at least alluded to a little bit about the route that you plan to take. So now let's look ahead. So what's next for you and what was it about the opportunity to work specifically in that kind of sector that really interests you?
Yep. So starting in September, I'm going to be working at a family law firm in San Francisco, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, I'm in Sacramento right now, but I'm in my final days here since I finished the bar and moving down to the Bay Area and starting my career from there.
All right. Well, we wish you the best of luck. We understand, too, that in the process of getting a law degree and in the process now of moving, you're also planning a wedding. Tell us more about that.
I am. So, yeah, I'm engaged to Sean Shepard, a baseball player, also graduated in 2018. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I have to say that planning a wedding was kind of in my breaks for study time. So that was fun. But, yeah, just, it's always a fun thing to do and happy I get to share it with another Lewis and Clark alum.
Well, give our best to Sean for us as well, and best of luck with the planning. Tucker Lawrence, who's in our Facebook live chat, said every psych major loved classes with Dr. Bill. So you apparently were not alone in that memory from your undergraduate time at Lewis and Clark.
Definitely.
We shift back to then the why. Let's go back in time, middle part of the 2010s, and you decide to attend Lewis and Clark. Why did you decide to become a PIO?
A lot of different reasons. I was kind of looking at some different schools, one in Minnesota and another, Illinois, I didn't even know. But anyways, just within the schools that I was looking at, I went and visited Portland and it's just an incredible city, a lot of things to do. And then just with the school itself, it had everything that I was looking for. I felt supported by the community. I thought the athletic community was also really great. And I had a chance to, right after I made my decision, to meet some of the girls on the basketball team. So really just a combination of all of that just really solidified my choice.
And women's basketball, your sport, you come through and had an excellent time at Lewis and Clark, rebounding and some of the skills that you brought to the team. But it was a roller coaster of a ride, right? And one thing that came to mind as I knew we were going to have you on is, and Doris is now the new head coach of Lewis and Clark women's basketball. There's been several coaches over the course of years, including yourself. You experienced coaching changes and such. What did you learn over the course of having new coaches and having to adjust? What are some of the things that have served you, going forward in your future from that experience?
I think biggest thing is really just dealing with adversity and kind of rolling with the punches. I mean, it's really, really hard, especially for our class specifically, because we had 10 freshmen coming in when we got a new coach. So really just trying to roll with the punches, trusting your team, trusting your new coaches. And I mean, we really just grew as a team because we went through two different coaches in our time there. But ultimately, I thought it was just a really good growing and learning experience for all of us on the team.
The team is always fun to talk about. Memories, things that you keep in your mind, especially having as big of a class and significant of a class as you did for Lewis and Clark women's basketball. What stays with you as you look back at your time as a member of the team?
I think one of our greatest memories, and I would assume a lot of my team members would say the same thing, is beating Puget Sound on our senior night. As you know, Puget Sound was always a team that we battled to get that 4th spot in playoffs. And our senior night came down to that game, and we had to beat Puget Sound to go to the playoffs. And I had a great game. Our team all played really, really well. So that's always just something that's going to stick in my mind, is beating Puget Sound that final time.
How much has basketball stayed in your life? Is it still something that you play? Is it still something you watch? Give us some insight there.
Well, unfortunately, law school kind of takes over your life. So I haven't had a chance to really play as much as I want to. But now that I'm moving down to the Bay Area, I'll be close to my really good friend Jackie, who's also on the team. So we're definitely planning on hitting up some women's rec leagues down there.
Well, wish you the best of luck as you do, obviously, in keeping athletics part of your life and decompressing from the grind that was law school, of course. I'm curious, you mentioned coming out, to Portland, having a chance to be on the Lewis and Clark College campus, having a chance to be in the Portland area. Outside of academics, outside of athletics, what kind of comes to mind when you think about the opportunity to be in the Pacific Northwest and have a chance to experience your college career out here?
There's so much to do in the Pacific Northwest, which is just the reason that it's so great. I mean, you could go hiking, you could go to the beach. I mean, you're close to everything. One of the things I really do miss from Portland is the food. I mean, there were just incredible places to go, and I know Sean and I are coming back in a couple of weeks to Portland, and that's our first thing. We're like, we have to hit up all these food places we haven't had. But just there's a lot of great things about the Pacific Northwest.
Colorado's pretty okay too, right?
It's okay.
Well,
I still think it beats Oregon.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's high praise for Colorado, but I'll be out there taking my daughter to her first Broncos game come October. So
there you go.
Pretty excited about that. Lauren, we definitely miss you on Palatine Hill. We certainly appreciate all that you brought to the Pios. Good luck to Sean and you as you move forward in your life and certainly into your career. Thanks for taking some time for us today on lcpioneers.com live.
Of course. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That's Lauren Wood joining us on the show. That was that Puget Sound game that Lauren brought up. That thing was amazing. I mean, I remember it was for a chance to get into the postseason tournament. It was a big win on senior night. And as we mentioned, that class that Lauren was part of was not a small class in numbers nor significance for Lewis and Clark. And that game stands out in my mind, both from the play on the floor. Lauren talked about how big of a game that she had. I pull up the box score. Mia Leith had 25 points in that game. You had double digits from Alex Krager, Lauren Wood, of course, and 12 rebounds with the double-double there for Lauren. So, that was not a small moment. Plus, the crowd at Pamplin Sports Center for that game was so good. I remember that pretty significantly as well. It's one of those kind of games that it'll be fun to kind of take a look back when we have a chance and maybe do similar to what we did for some of our sports during the course of the pandemic, where we had a watch back and bring some of the players back from that moment and watch that game and have a chance to reflect on it, because that was a big moment for Lewis and Clark athletics. Went on to qualify for the Northwest Conference Tournament semifinals, and a good way to end the career for Lauren and her class back in 2018. That was a lot of fun. Now, we've shifted the format for the show. We had been 4 days a week prior. We moved to 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And with that change, usually have 2 guests per show. Not the case for this week on the heels of my vacation, getting ready for the fall. But starting next Tuesday and Thursday, that is our plan going forward into the fall 2021 semester. And that'll be a lot of fun because we are expecting to have a full year of Lewis and Clark athletics on the horizon. And that's significant because we've never done this show for a full year of having on-campus events and having a full schedule of sports starting with the fall. You have football, volleyball, women's soccer, and cross-country schedules posted right now at lcpioneers.com. So if you want to check out what's on the docket and what's getting ready for Lewis and Clark Athletics, please go to lcpioneers.com and check that out, because we are just a month away from competition. It should be a lot of fun in Portland and throughout the Pacific Northwest. So for Lauren Wood joining us, I am Ryan Goff. Thank you so much for being here on lcpioneers.com live. And if you missed any of it, you can watch it on demand, both on Facebook Live, also on our YouTube page, youtube.com/lcpios, and of course, inside the fan zone at lcpioneers.com. Until then, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again on Tuesday for more of the show presented by PioStream. Goodbye, everybody.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.